Okay, let's call a special session of the county council and the commissioners together, and we'll start out normal. Mr. Cores, how about leading us in the pledge this morning?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of America, and one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I think Mr. Hooton called this, so Kenny, you wanna take off?
I don't have anything to say. I just thought the council should get together. We need to talk about, at the last meeting that we had with the EDC and pool committee, and Teresa was there and several others, that we just got to decide what kind of money we're going to put on this project, or able to put on the project or something, so things can get moving forward. They've got some contractors they're looking at. We've been talking about it now for I don't know how long, but we just need to come together and look at our dollars and see what we're able to spend and give them some kind of direction on what we're able to do or what we want to do. And so I think that's where we need to be. So we have $3 million right in. We have $3 million on the table right now. Project can be anywhere between $3 million and $10 million is what we're kind of looking at, but we got to start someplace, and I think letting them figuring out what we're able to spend could be a good start. So that's kind of why I thought we ought to come together, and the commissioners are here, and see what their feeling is, and go from there.
Okay. Anybody else?
I have a question. Have we, are there any grants out there to help fund this other than the Ready Action? No.
No, someone had mentioned I don't know if it was ODNR grant or something like that. I looked into it right away when I saw somebody post that, and from everything I saw, that was for certain communities that we would not qualify for that because of employment and income and things like that.
Well, I'll make a comment. As far as I'm willing to go is another $1 million. That's my comment.
$4 million.
I don't know what that'll do, which direction it'll go. I think it gives them something to work towards. I don't know how many donations. Have you got any donations yet? No donations?
I mean, there's been some come through the foundation, but I don't know the exact amount at this time. Minimum donations so far.
So donations in general in our community have been foundering, for lack of a better term. Most of the goals have not been being received, as you can imagine, with the economy the way it is. I think we've looked into the hospital fundraiser, we've looked into the YMC fundraiser, and all of those have been falling short of their goals. So I don't know that counting on a large sum of money from the community. Yes, we plan on, if we get to a certain goalpost and we need a little bit more doing fundraising for those kind of things, but to expect millions of dollars, I don't think is probably likely. We've also reached out to several of the large companies in our community and have sadly been disappointed in the response on those as well. So it's not like we haven't looked in other places for money, but we don't see that potential being great.
It's a pretty high dollar project to expect the community to kick in. I mean, $1 million, if we got $1 million, that's a bunch to be donated, I would think. Chris?
When does the board think that they're gonna have a solid number of what this pool will cost?
Well, we really
You'll
don't.
have to ask those guys on
I don't know.
that.
That's a question I've been asking too.
You'll have to ask the.
Go ahead, Brian.
Well, I was going to say with the responses that we got to the RFPs, essentially the format that they're suggesting to go is that they create 3 scenarios, a $3 to $4 million scenario. I think it was, what, 6 to 7 scenario, you know, a higher end scenario, 3, and look what you can get for each one, and then bring it to the county. That was the proposal from those who applied. Is that accurate?
Right.
How soon do you expect those?
Well, you know, you interview as soon as possible. Once that group is selected by, technically it'll be the commissioners because they are I would say, sign-offs for all BOT projects in the county. Once those are selected, then we can sit down and have the conversations.
So part of my concern with that is I'd like to go into those conversations having an idea of what kind of money we have available. If we only have $3 million available, there's no other funds available through budgetary restraints, I want to make sure that we know walking into that, hey, we're at 3 or 4. I don't want the contractors to spend a bunch of time on higher end number of projects that we don't have funding for. So in my idea, and this is what I've kind of put in front of the pool committee when I've gone to meetings, is like, I would like to have a budget in place before we do the legwork to do multiple scenario bases. With Verigy, we spent 2 years kind of negotiating, going back and forth with them on project stuff. And at the end of the day, the money part of it was where some of our concerns came in when we ended up voting to not do that at the time, was really about some of the money concerns and how we were going to pay for that. So before we get too far into contract stuff and building a proposal, knowing what we're going to have available to spend through the council is important to that process, in my opinion.
And this is where I think we keep spinning the wheel, because we keep saying we need to know what the budget is, and then we keep saying we need to know what the pool is, and then somebody else will say we keep knowing the budget. So we're just circling all the whole time and not coming to any definite decisions.
Yes, sir.
The 3 million that's on the table, was that from the Ready grant money?
Ready and matching.
That was the 2 matching, the
Yes.
2 grants, correct? That's where the 3 million, I just wanted to
Which the
clarify
intent
that.
of that money was to build something that would draw people to our community and not just refurbish a hole in the ground. Yes.
But that was the 2 grants that were available. That's the 3 million on the table.
Yeah, Ready and ARPA.
Thank you.
ARPA money.
Thank you.
Mark, what do you have? What's your feeling, Mark, from the commissioner's perspective?
I've sat through these meetings and I hear what the public says, and I kind of feel the same way, that what I've heard from the majority is $4 million is probably where I'm at. See what $4 million does.
So I'd be curious, the people who are saying $4 million, have you looked into what $4 million will do? Or are you just saying $4 million because that's an easy number to say?
Well, $4 million is money that we have. But I don't think we've actually, I mean, we talked to anybody that we've told them we got $4 million to spend? What are we possibly able to get for $4 million? Done that?
Are you wanting a $4 million renovation, or are you wanting a $4 million start over, or a brand
Well,
new
it
pool?
doesn't really matter. Whatever we can get that's gonna make us, get us a nice pool. And I mean, I don't know what that looks like, because I don't think we've been down that road yet.
Well, based on the pools that we've visited and we've gone to see, $4 million probably isn't going to get much of a brand new pool out there. I mean, I don't have the exact design or anything for a $4 million pool, but based on the ones that we saw, I don't recall too many of them being much in the 4 million unless they were considerably smaller than the pool we currently have. If you build a pool that's smaller than the Allen Memorial Pool now is, the community's not going to be extremely excited about it. It's not going to be a new draw. It's not going to bring excitement and new life out in that area that I think is the goal that you guys want and we want as well. The community will be surprised at what they get for $4 million. And I understand that's what you're saying that we have money for. I understand that, but I'm just saying in the long run, in the end, I'm not sure that we're going to see the new exciting pool out there that people are going to be drawn to want to come back to. I don't know if we'll be able to get the features that will keep them here and not have them travel to other places again.
But we really still don't know what $4 million will build us, correct?
We don't have a $4 million.
Well, then all the estimates are gained from pools that we visited and price tags that went along with those. And again, those, a lot of those price tags were prior to, in some cases, were prior to COVID, and things have obviously gone up since then.
Right, and the plans that we had are dated back July of 2022, so even the preliminary budget that we had, or not really a budget, but proposed budget, is still not probably gonna be accurate now, this late, or this far down the road. So,
Well, that's the problem we're having is we keep talking about we can't build a pool for $4 million, or we can't build a pool like somebody else for $4 million, but we don't really know what we want to build. I think that's where we, you know, so you got to start somewhere. So if you got $4 million, okay, let's get with some contractors or somebody and say, we've got $4 million. What's our possibilities? Because we have never done that.
but we now have the interest of 4 contractors, 4 firms that are interested in our project.
Right.
And
So,
we just got those in like last,
right, but you have to give them
Friday
some
after
kind of,
Thanksgiving.
gotta give them some kind of direction on what you want.
That's true.
What amenities would the council like to see on the pool? What do you guys think the pool should have? So the committee, I mean, zero entry is something that has been important for us to make sure that we have water features in that zero entry area so that disabled people can enjoy that and be more than just standing in shallow water. A slide, there's been conversation about the diving well and laps. So those are the amenities. So if we're gonna go in and say, hey, we've got $4 million, we would like these things. And that's what, you know, I put myself on the pool committee and with some hesitation to get the information to kind of have these conversations with people. But the conceptual drawing has those things in there. So they kind of picked what they thought our pool should have and then got pricing based off of that. And it ranges anywhere from $10 million to $6 million, depending on parking and different things. So they have conceptual pricing everywhere from 10 million to 6 million. But the amenities that they pick stay pretty solid between that. So like the lazy river is $1.2 million, I think was what was on that. That's an amenity they put in there that can come or go. But a lot of the conversation when I reviewed the conceptual stuff that they gave us at the last meeting, a lot of the variations were based on the amenities that we put. The actual build and the removal of the old deteriorated concrete, a lot of stuff didn't vary. It was the amenities that we want. So what amenities should we try to make sure that we have if we move forward and say, hey, we've got X amount of dollars and we would like these amenities? What amenities should we put forward to the companies to bring back for proposal?
Well, I mean, you're asking the council for that input. I don't think that's our, I mean, we all have personal feelings about it, which everybody in here has a personal feeling about it. But the council, our responsibility is basically to fund the thing. You got Teresa and all her people that have worked on this pool project. They know the pool more than we. There's for us to sit here and say we want this, this, and this in the pool. I think that's not our responsibility. That really doesn't have anything to do with us.
And the only thing I've ever seen is come swim with us.
Well, I mean, we all, like I said, we all have personal preferences, what we'd like to see there, but our responsibility as a body of government is to find the money. Once we do that, that gets some kind of a starting point. You know, if we say we got $4 million and we can't build a pool or can't do anything for $4 million, okay, then let's take a second look. What else can we do to do that? But we've never been to that point. We're kind of all over the place. We want this, we want to do that. Got projects. You know, I've looked at all these projects. They're kind of all over the place, and that's fine. But we got to start somewhere. So but like I said, I don't think it's our deal to say, you know, we're going to give you $4 million to go build a pool. We want this, 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 and this in the pool. I think that's not our job. Our job is to say, you've got $4 million. Let's start there and see what you can do with it.
And we knew when we first met Context, or we were referred to Context after we visited the Greenfield pool. And we knew that we were looking at a gold standard pool design, but we all as a committee picked out the features that we thought would be not accepted, but liked and, you know, exciting for our pool. We put those features on a list. They drew up that list, and we did start with the gold design, knowing that we could take out or change. And that gold design included some things in the parking lot that we don't really need. I don't need a tree and an island, I need a parking space. But, or maybe it included an outside playground because Greenfield rents a playground and a shelter outside their pool every day for birthday parties. It's an everyday revenue for them. We have a park across the road, so we didn't feel as a pool committee that the play structure outside the pool was important to us. They also pushed and pushed and pushed for a splash pad to be added. A lot of the pools that we had have a splash pad standing beside their pool. They can either be opened by gate to be open when the pool's not open. Some of them were part of the pool. We don't have a large splash pad like what we saw, but we have a splash pad feature. So we felt like we could take that out. So we did already we took the splash pad out because that was considerable amount of money than what you would think just to put in a splash pad. So we knew that we could back off of things. We don't need X number of bike racks. We may not need the, different features. It also included a new self-standing concession stand. But that was because if the pool were made bigger, we had to have more restroom amenities to cover the number of people at the pool. You have to have so much of the restroom based on the size of your people, your crowd. So we knew that. We knew that we never came in and said, we're going to build a $10 million pool. We knew that's what the price tag was of the goal. But we also knew that there were ways to step it down. But we, as a committee, tried to come forward with an idea of how to fund this whole thing, which we knew, it wasn't 100% going to be everybody's favorite way to fund a pool. We knew that, but that's how we got the option and where we thought we were sending ourselves to maybe a budget, of what we could have got. We knew we had the $3 million. If we were able to come up with another plan to maybe fund the gap a little bit and then try to get a few donations. Yeah, we're not going to get millions in local donations right now. Times are hard. They're tapped out. People are reaching out everywhere. But we were trying to propose a way that it would be paid for without the council having to think, oh, how are we going to, do this? So we knew that was not necessarily going to mean that we were going to build a $10 million pool. We never said that we wanted to build that elaborate of a pool. So with that being said, we can take some of those things off, like, Kenny said, we can take things off, or Tony was talking about, and get down to the lower budget, but none of the things that we preliminarily had were in the $4 million range of a new pool. They just weren't. So I don't know. I can't tell you what we can get for $4 million, but I guess maybe we'll know soon.
And what Teresa's not saying is that we put a lot of thought into the features that we did choose to put in that initial drawing. It was what is best for the community and how would that benefit us. Tony mentioned the lazy river. I know you've all probably seen information about therapeutics and how a lot of communities are using the lazy river for therapeutics. They also haven't talked about how the lazy river is also good for hesitant swimmers, people who aren't really comfortable in a deep part of the pool. That would be a benefit that would help draw those people and give them something to do in our community with their families in an outside setting. We chose the family slide because, again, it was something that the families could interact in. So the things weren't picked lightly. There was thought behind it. Teresa fought very much for the dive well. The benefit of the dive well would be that not a lot of the newer pools have a dive well. So again, if we're trying to draw people into our community, it would be something that a lot of the other pools don't offer. We've heard a lot about swim lanes. We did have a small area for swim lanes, but if we investigated needing swim lanes for our community, then that would be something we could look into. So these features aren't just, well, let's just throw it here, throw it there. They were actually chosen for a reason. That doesn't mean we have to keep them, but more thought has to be put into it than, well, let's just cut this and let's just cut that. I'm not really for just saying we have this, we can't do it. I'm for saying, how can we do it? We presented ways to do it, and we're not even looking at those.
Yes, sir. Well, I'd like to bring up the fact that at the end referred to it. We haven't mentioned the opportunity to do a food and beverage tax. I'd like to hear a discussion on what kind of money that would generate and who would pay for it. Because that is another source of money that is out there. And we could use it as many other communities are using it. Let's talk about it. Let's hear some discussion on what that would raise for the community and who would be paying for it.
Well, I think we're just right back to where we were last time we were here. We talked about all the things you guys looked at and putting in the pool, but we don't have So what are we actually gonna build? What kind of pool are we gonna build? What are we gonna put in? Do we have that down to where this is what kind of pool we want to build? This is the stuff we want. This is kind of a rough idea what it's gonna cost. Do we have that?
We have the drawings, the conceptual budgets and things that we started with, yes.
Okay, so what all, is that exactly what you'd like to see have in that?
Those are the amenities that we, as a committee, felt would be,
Okay, but we had 2 meetings and there was none of that was brought to the meeting. Everybody's like, well, we're trying to figure out what we're gonna build or what we wanna build, but we don't have any design drawings, we don't have any idea of what that might run. I think that's where everybody's kind of trying to figure out where we're going here.
So we know that several people are comfortable with $3 to $4 million in the range. A lot of people at the public hearing were asking more questions about the food and beverage tax and what that would bring in. What if we moved forward with, instead of 3 options, looking at those 2 options as potential budgets and what we can get for that? Not saying we're gonna vote on the food and beverage tax, but conservative estimates as to what that would bring in. And then that would be our high-end option to see what that affords us, because we're not educated enough to know what we're going to get. We don't wanna build a $3 million hole in the ground nobody's gonna visit. So I think we just need more information, but I don't feel like it's fair to just take the food and beverage tax off the table completely. I think we need to know what those numbers are and what that would get us. I feel like a lot of people that were asking questions may feel more comfortable with that, but I think we owe it to everybody that's been involved in the public to at least pursue that as an option when we're considering what we're going to vote on.
And let's find ways to offset some of the hardships from the conversations that we heard at the food and beverage. I've been in talks with the health department. Is there ways that we could have programs that would help cut the cost for the restaurants, maybe on licensings or things like that? We heard pushback from $7 for an admission for the pool, which quite honestly, if Wolf Theater charges $8.50 for a student fee, I don't feel like $7 if it's a nice pool is really high. But maybe there are incentives that the health department can do for children to get outside and offer them discounts for that kind of thing. So, and maybe we can find another tax that affects our entire population in lieu of having the food and beverage tax. Nobody's talking about options, they're just cutting everything off.
So my question, thanks, Danny. My question is, where does the extra $1 million to get to the $4 million come from? When we had discussions here in the last couple of months about the financial burden of maintaining the old county highway garage on our payroll or on our books, that we didn't have the money to maintain the highway garage or remodel it. And then we also didn't have the money to put into the annex with any type of remodeling at that point when we were having those discussions. So I'm just curious on where we can get the money for an extra $1 million here when we've been told in other meetings that we don't have funding for those other areas, but now we have another $1 million for a pool.
I've been in discussion with Ruben about that. He'd come up with a scenario. It's not worked completely out. If we need to call him, we can, but he was suggesting edit is what he was suggesting. Borrowing money off a bank, making a 5 to 6 year payment on it. I asked him about it yesterday. Talked to him. And if we need to talk to him, he said, call him, put him on speaker.
Currently, what's in edit right now?
1.7 or 1.9. And I'm in agreement with Jeremy. And we asked a very similar question 2 months ago, and there were no solutions then on how to maintain and keep the highway garage so that we could expand out of it. And
that's a little different.
My question is, how's the $1 million affect the annex? How does it affect Ready to Go fairgrounds stuff? How does it affect
Well,
You know,
the
when we talked about,
Annex is up and running.
when we talked about Coombe Cap, in March and Coombe Bridge, there was discussion that Coombe Bridge was gonna be short in the next few years. It may have to come out of Coombe Cap. Are those things that, you know, we're considering when we're talking about finding extra money for the pools, since we don't have problems with those? And yeah, the annex is running, but it's running on borrowed time, and the, you know, a 10-year loan from edit will affect the annex conversation, even if it's 3 to 5 years from now. Those are the questions I have from a commissioner's standpoint. We have to figure out Coombe Cap and Coombe Bridge and roads and those things. And that's why I had Todd come and be prepared to speak on what the road projections were and cost for that over the next 10 years. There's been some conversation about trying to lower a tax in support of the other tax. The wheel tax was part of that conversation. But I'm also.
Right now, we're talking about the pool. So let's focus back on.
Well, but it's all connected.
Well, the wheel tax, we raised that so we get $1 million a year for roads. We start taking that away and we're gonna lose.
I agree.
So, I mean, that's my opinion there. Because I mean, we use the roads 365 days a year. We're gonna use a pool 60, 90 days.
Well, we have to have it for the community crossings.
Right. You have to have it.
But I'm in agreement. It was just a question that had got brought up that, hey, can we lower that wheel tax? So, you know, I know that we're only gaining, wheel tax brings in like $340,000 a year. When we match that with community crossing, it brings in just under $1 million. So we have $1.2 million through that for the roads. And Todd was able to get the information of paving a mile of roads, $116,000 a year. We have 570 miles of road, so.
When we put the wheel tax on, it costs $40,000 a mile.
Okay.
So that'll tell you where we're at now. And as far as the food and beverage tax from that Baker Tilly, according to Baker Tilly's estimate, it brings in $539,000 a year. And I'll say this, it's not going to be popular. Reuben done the same study, and his came up with $330,000 a year. So we're really not sure how much it'll really bring in between. Does that make sense?
There were a lot of holes in Ruben's theory. I'm sorry, but I would trust the Department of Revenue that collects that all over the state numbers.
Okay. That's still 200,000 difference. So I mean, even if they're 100,000, hey, Reuben's 100,000 off, they're 100,000 off, we're down to 430,000.
Well, you know, here again, we're not in a better shape right this moment than we were when we started. But I think we ought to put $4 million on the table for the pool project. We can pay for it. We don't have to tax the community. We don't have to tax anybody. Let's start there and see what we can do for $4 million. We don't really know what we want specifically. We don't know what we're going to do specifically. So I think if we can, if start and say we really would like to have this, and this, and we really need this, and this, okay, and that's going to cost $6 million. It costs $6 million. Let's take a second look at what we can do to either do that or let's get it back to $4 million. But we got to start someplace. So, yes, sir.
Through your travels and investigations of all these different pools, realistically, what number do you think we need to come to get this pool completed? I mean, it sounds like $4 million is not going to do it. Is that correct?
Based on the lowest conceptual budget that we had, it was probably $6.6 million at the low end of the different studies that we had. We did visit the pool most recently in Frankfurt. It was a $10 million project. So we visited some that were maybe 5 up to 10. So it just depends. There's different ones, different prices. But they were also significantly different pools. They weren't comparing.
Yeah, so the lowest conceptual number was 6.6 million, and it still had Lazy River in it.
But we also have to figure
So to the lesser
We also have to figure when those prices were.
Yeah, it's went up.
Right.
We know that.
Funny.
Say it's 6.6, it's gonna be over 7.
So I think this board has to figure that $4 million is not gonna work.
And I'm not saying $4 million will work, I'm saying we gotta start someplace.
I agree with that.
And we can start with $4 million, let's say, let's figure out what we want. Let's figure out what it's gonna take to do it. Because from my perspective, we're not at that point yet, at least from what I see, what I've seen.
As a committee, though, we did compile a list of what we wanted and what we thought, like Deanna said, what was important, different features. So we did come up with a list of what we wanted as a wish list. So we did start somewhere. It's not like we haven't,
Right.
you
Well, I
know,
know
talked
you've
to
been working on
anybody
it for a
about a
while.
plan and just have it up in the air somewhere. I mean, we have started. We've been working on this since early 22. So, I mean, so we have started somewhere. We have tried to do a plan based on what we've seen. So to say we haven't come up with a plan, it's just that we haven't come up with a plan that matches what we have apparently available to pay for. That's the difference. We still have that gap between what's available and what it's going to take to get us to where we need to be.
Larry, you're going to present a plan to the public so we can see what you want and some kind of idea what that will cost, so we can decide as a group. The council could see what you'd be asking for money.
I think that keeps getting mentioned about not presenting plans or not presenting what we wanted, and I think that goes back from the fact that this has been going on for so long. But those plans were shown and presented early on in the whole process. I mean, we have them. They're in my office. I mean, I could, anyone's welcome to stop by. I'll show them our conceptual plan. It was never a set in stone plan, and it was always presented in any talks that I did in front of the council commissioners or whoever, that it was strictly a proposed plan. It wasn't anything that we were ever locked into or, you know, set in stone, but it was a proposal. And you bring up Come Swim With Us, it was on that website. I mean, that's when we first brought it out to the public, what we were looking at and ideas.
Over a year ago.
It was early in 22, yes. And we were excited to see that Context said that we could build this over the actual pool that we had, not over it, but in the same footprint that we currently had. And we were not going to have to take a lot of extra space or eliminate anything. So they are available. I mean,
Are those tentative plans still on Come Swim With Us?
Yes,
They've been out there for,
over a year.
yeah.
so they have been, and I guess I just didn't realize, it's probably because through all those months and over a year and a half that different people have joined in the conversation later and maybe haven't seen them. So, but if you want to look at them, I'm more than happy to discuss it with anybody anytime.
I personally feel the best solution is to find another tax, maybe an edit tax, something like that, that we can drop a small percentage that would offset a food and beverage tax, pass the food and beverage tax. If we drop a tax that everybody has, then everybody gets the benefit of that. And then the food and beverage tax is just a consumption tax that will pay for the pool in the form that would benefit our community, that would make the pool possibly self-sustainable, which a $3 to $4 million pool will not do. And then find other programs to benefit the restaurants and those that are attending. That's, in my opinion, the best answer.
So one of the papers that I got from the pool committee on costs, the $6.6 million project. Demolition was at $53,000. Earthwork and utilities was $131 and $320. Pavement $33. Pavement for pool, curbs, flush and concrete, $375, shade, $195, furnishings, $96. That doesn't have a subtotal because it's taken out. Water slide 1 and 2, additional water slide was $95,000. Beach entry area with bubblers and play features, open water swim lanes, lazy river was $1.2 million. Dive well, floating dividers, and pavement slide. That was $3.8 million for the minute that goes with that. Existing renovations on the building, bring them up to codes, $265,000. New mechanical room and building and restrooms at $602. No concessions. Landscape at $57. with a total of 6.6 million. And that was the bottom end with all the amenities. So basically, as low as they could get on it in 2021, 22 conceptual. So again, if you take out the Lazy River 5.4, I spent a lot of time looking on Google, finding counties that built stuff and looked at things. I wasn't really finding anything under 4.5 or 5 million. David Fry found a pool in Shelby, Illinois that was similar to kind of what we're doing without really any comfort creatures. It was built in early 2000. It was for 2.4 million in 2004. And that's kind of discussions. We talked about a lot of this stuff in our meetings of where do we really need to be at? What's a realistic goal to get us there? I think that's kind of what Dean is talking about. Like everything that we've looked at, is 4 million doesn't really get us there. Happy to tell them, see what you can get us for 4 million with the amenities and come back to the number. But we on the committee who spent a lot of time talking about it, and I want the number to be reasonably low too. I mean, as a commissioner, I don't want to spend a ton of money. We have a lot of other projects that have to be done. The annex being one of them, and some additions to the fairgrounds is important too. So just put all of our eggs in one basket and not have a financing way to do some of the other projects is my concern, which is why, I asked about the $1 million is how's that affect the annex? How's it affect fairgrounds projects? How's it affect these other things that we want to talk about in the next, well, they're already being talked about. They're already on the table. How do we pay for those also? How long are we putting those off? So as a commissioner, for me, it comes into the table on whether I want to approve the project or which projects I want to approve and whether we have money for all of them as a priority.
Okay, so one of the things that I have heard from a lot of people I've talked to is the fact that, we'll spend $6-7 million or whatever it ends up being for 75 days of operation. 290 days, it's going to be closed. So what if we could possibly build something out there for $4 or $5 million or $4 million and take the others? If we're going to say it's going to cost $6 million, maybe we can build it for 4 or 5 and take that other $2 million and apply it to some other projects that are going to benefit us year round, like the fairgrounds. So, if we're looking at doing a tax, the tax can be used for the fairgrounds, or that we do a minimal amount at the pool to get it to where we would like for it to be, to where everybody's comfortable with it, and take that other money and put it into something that's going to generate revenue and draw people year round, not just 75 days a year.
I don't disagree with that.
Chris, do you have something?
What Mr. Blodgett or Commissioner Blodgett just read off, is that something that the council has seen?
No, haven't laid eyes on it.
I fully thought that those were all talked about early in the discussions.
I know that Kenny has it, I know that Tony has it, I know that Bill has it.
Here it is.
I never seen that.
I never seen that other than I went to the meeting.
Okay. I never seen it.
Like I said, for me, that's a concern, because I agree in schools, it's an important thing to have, but when, as a commissioner, I think about the annex, some of the other projects, infrastructure, important projects we have, as part of a conversation of how to finance things, how are we going to pay for all of them? How are we planning to cover potential shortfall in the bridges in the next 3 or 4 years?
Well, I think a smart move would be to take a look at those projects and say, okay, we don't want to spend a boatload of our money on this project when we can spend it on this project and we can see a bigger return on investment. That's how you want to look at it.
Yeah, I mean, the annex
we got to have a pool. I don't think anybody's saying we don't need a pool. We got to have a pool. So we got to.
So do you want a self-sustainable pool or a not self-sustainable pool that you have to put money into every year?
I don't think a pool will ever be self-sustainable.
I don't either.
I mean, I look at those numbers that you did, and that all makes sense, but that's for 75 days of operation if we were open 75 days. So what if it rains for 2 weeks?
There's a lot of what ifs in everything.
Well, and that's what I'm saying, but so you can't speculate that it's going to be, if you speculate that it's on the top end of everything and then it doesn't, we got to be realistic about it. If it doesn't, I mean, have we ever seen 75 days of good weather all summer? I've been on this council a long time, and the pool's never been sustainable. And I don't know that, I mean, I guess if you spent these other pools that are sustainable, they spent the money to build all the amenities that they could put into it, and yeah, it probably does generate some income.
And part of my problem with the food and beverage tax too is a hardship it puts on some of the small businesses.
Well, that it does, but I think
Doing that.
we haven't, like, I think I agree with Dan on that. We haven't looked at options, maybe we could offset some of their hardship.
Just
something else,
excuses.
but-
Who's gonna offset the residents' hardship?
Well, they won't have any unless you go out to eat.
You will, yeah, that's correct.
When you go out to eat somewhere else and you pay it.
Not
Do you eat in Shelbyville?
very seldom.
Do you go to Little Nashville?
No.
Do you go to Indianapolis?
No. What's there?
Well, I'd say you're
Any
in
restaurant with the food and beverage.
But, you know,
That's why I propose looking at another tax that we could lower slightly to offset that.
that word right there is not good. Tax for anyone.
So you don't want us to lower one?
You won't lower them anyway. Taxes will never be lowered. Never. Look at our water rates in the city. 3%, 3%, 3%, 3%. It just
That
keeps
has
going.
nothing to do with us.
County.
No, I understand that, and then the city will add another, with the food and beverage tax. So then we get 2%.
City is not looking at a food and beverage tax. And they don't have much time because they're phasing it out. I mentioned that in the other meeting we were at.
Doesn't take much time.
Well, I don't think we're here to decide today on what we're gonna do with the food and beverage tax, because right now it's still there. We gotta get moving forward with this pool, and I don't see us getting that done.
Yeah, we're already now probably looking at a 26 opening. We're hoping for a 25 opening.
The $3 million, we're running out of time on that, correct?
It has to be promised by the end of next year.
That's for 2026, how much we spent. ARPA money bills.
The ready's the same.
It's right the same. So yeah, 2026.
And also the admission fee to get into the pool, say it is $7. Are you saying you'll think you make revenue to pay back on the pool out of that money? I mean, how much of that's gotta go back to maintenance for the pool?
The revenue, daily revenue will not be money that we're able to pay back the owner of the food and beverage tax. Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
I would say probably not right at the beginning, especially until it gets established, but I don't see that happening.
Do we know what the approximate attendance is to the pool every year?
Yes,
She's got it.
abysmal. I have it right in front of me, which is why this conversation should have started 10 years ago. Let me pull up my-
The early 2000s, 2000, 2009, it was between 10 and 11,000 people visits a year.
Actually, it was up to 12,000 in 2005.
Yeah.
And between 2011 and 2013, it dropped 35% from 10,000 a year to 6,500 a year, and has never gone up since then. It's
So
only
do
gone
you
down.
think that is because of the condition of the
Yes.
pool?
The other reason would be because school went from 12 weeks out in the summer to 6. And that's not gonna change.
And the other pools drawing.
Yeah.
Shelbyville.
I would say it was a combination of all those things that were just mentioned.
Yeah, on
Yes,
that
the
note,
school
North
calendar
Vernon
changed
had,
things.
North Vernon had over 17,000 visits this year.
And how many days were they open?
Same as us.
They have
Same, are you talking 8 weeks when you said same as us?
They operate about, it averages around 75 days a year. I mean, based on which ones we visited.
I don't understand why it matters how long we're open. If we're self-sustainable and everybody says we need a pool, then that's really not a factor in the conversation.
But to your point, like I said, North Vernon had 17,000 this year.
And North
they're
Vernon
a
only has
comparable
a
community.
very small pool with not the features that our pool has.
'Cause like I
And they're
said,
drawing people from our community.
But North Herman needed that pool and people were so excited about it. And that's why all those people went to that pool, is because that park was so run down for so long. And then they built this pool. Even I'm never going to the pool.
Yeah,
But-
I'm not either.
When I drove past that North Vernon pool, I thought about it. It was nice. I mean, even though it's small, it was fresh, it was new, it was exciting, and that's what got people to go to it.
I don't.
what was the North
remember
Vernon pool
of
cost? Do you remember?
I don't remember that either.
I don't. I don't know, I know they built the new pool on the front end of the park versus the old one that was always in the back end of the park, but it's very small. I mean, it's very colorful, it's very eye-catching, it's exciting. It is a smaller pool. It's a smaller size area, water surface area than what we're talking about, but it is a nice addition to that park, absolutely.
We do have a lot of softball, baseball tournaments too.
Well, that's part of the building process. If we have something there they're excited about coming to, hopefully that'll help them grow that, the softball parks, grow the events at the fairgrounds. It's all a combination of all of the things put together.
$3.2 million for the North Vernon Park.
That was built when?
Right, in the I think it was during the pandemic when they were building, because they got backed up.
May of 2020 is when the article was run.
It started, yeah.
And then you said it's smaller than ours though?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's quite a bit smaller than the water surface area that we currently have.
So they built that pool for $3.5 million or whatever, and they draw 17,000 people a year.
Yeah, because they drew some of our people from here.
Okay.
So again, when I was part of the committee, I think the original budget stuff, we were talking using those numbers, and I asked for them to utilize 12,000 visits for ours, because we were talking about using the 17 or 18,000 visits. So we looked at the budget profit thing, it was with 12,000 visitors, because we have had those visitors in Decatur County in the past versus using 17 or 18, because we didn't want to inflate these numbers with something that we didn't know was going to be sustainable. So when we sat down talking about that several weeks ago or a month ago or whatever, it was like, hey, let's use 12,000 and not 18,000. Ours will be bigger. Shelbyville told us to build it as big as we can because they
What Shelbyville told me is they said, if you're gonna plan it, you better plan it big because we underplanned and we're at capacity almost all the time.
And I think North Vernon.
Which others, people will come to ours because they can't.
So they could have had more, but instead of presenting to you guys a budget of 17 or 18,000 visits, we use 12 because we think that's long-term sustainable. So that was saying, was like, hey, don't put 18,000 on there, let's put 12, because we used to pull 12. That'll take away kind of the nuance of something that we think is sustainable for 8 or 10 years. Because I had great reservations about the pool potentially turning into profit when I went to the committee and look at the numbers and keep them reasonable. It's possible for sustainable 8, 10 years, 20 years, even pull 12,000 visits, I think, because we were doing that in the early class.
What we need to do, we need to make a motion or what?
No, it's just special session. Can't do that in this meeting.
Making decisions.
Have to do that in the meeting. It's a discussion area only.
Okay.
But we think we can free up $1 million and still work towards the annex project and getting that construction done in the next 3 to 5 years.
And
How about the Park Road project?
that's
How's
the
that getting
highway
funded?
department.
When I asked that question, I was told that that should be able to be funded through funds that the highways already got coming.
It's just how far you drink stuff.
I get 80% of that back too.
Oh, okay.
I get 80% of it back each time.
Yeah.
Yeah, our outlay is what, 1.6 million is our outlay for that.
That'll definitely be an asset to the pool.
About $1 million, isn't it? You guys could have.
You can't get there. You don't have a ride, you can't get there unless you got a bicycle.
Well, and Parks was afforded the extra position this year for a coordinator to try and bring more tournaments in and do more things in that area too. So, ultimately, when you look at the total 3-year plan that are out there, the new Park Road project and trails to get people to and from the area, plus a coordinator to hopefully bring in a lot more tournaments and utilize the diamonds and things like that to bring tourism to the area, plus a new pool of some sorts into the area. And then there's also conversation about fairgrounds improvement in this area. Again, we still have to figure out how to finance the rest of that fairground stuff, but a lot of conversation going on in that area. Just want to make sure that when those things get put on the table, have the money to do them. And if they're talked about now, for the annex, yes, it's still operating. I know the roof leaks. I don't think we've really done anything with that roof since we've owned it. So it's at least 20 years old.
I thought it was checked out by, it's okay in the market. It was checked out by
What's the
Kellerman's.
What's the life expectancy of a rubber roof, though?
He said it still had 10 to 12 years left in it.
So I was in on that one, he said the roof's in pretty good shape right now on it. Okay, I got anything else? I mean, so I get some numbers, go ahead.
Well, and I don't know if this is something that you look at, but could they use part of the interest off of investments to help fund the pool at all? Or
I'm
is
not
the
sure, I
interest
think it goes
itself
back into
used for
county general,
more
doesn't it,
things?
Jen?
It goes back into county general, which is part of our revenues
Or,
to sustain our budgets that we're
Yeah,
adopting.
it needs to be there to sustain what we're doing next year, because we're
I mean, you're doing well,
yeah,
but.
over projection.
it's just in county general alone, what's in Trust Indiana is like over $1 million. And of course, there's a few others, but that's already earmarked for certain things. But, you know, you don't want to run yourself dry. Yet I can see Deanna's point. You don't want to have just a minimum of everything or it won't draw. My kids actually went to the pool to do swim lessons. And I mean, swimming itself saves lives. And I know I got a other half that says you don't need it because it's only open X amount of days, but yet, I don't know, gotta find a way.
Sure like to have some numbers.
So we would borrow from Edit, or would we just pay it from Edit?
Paying for that. And it's still up in the air a little bit. I think I emailed you a scenario last night, but it's. There's some money that I can use.
Did I get that email?
I printed it. There, you get a copy of it. But that's just one scenario.
Got another one of those, Jim?
No, but I'll send it to you. They just sent it to me late last night.
This scenario is using Edit.
You can read it there. And I'm not saying that's the way it's gonna work, I'm just saying that's what he came up with, looked at. That makes sense? And that's based on income and edit. That's not based on,
Oh, getting into Edit.
right, but that's based on what currently comes into edit yearly. That's what he was basing it on.
Chris, I have a question. If you guys vote on the food and beverage tax, how long did it take to kick in and when?
I think it's the first of the following month, but what we were told from the Department of Revenue was it'll take a month or two for it to actually, people to get the process down and for it to actually be fully implemented at that point.
And somebody asked me about the innkeeper's tax. I didn't know anything about that. It seemed to be a state legislated thing like food and beverage, but I wasn't able to find the statute on ours.
I think it's all maxed out too.
It's all tourism.
It's tourism, it goes right straight to tourism. That's what they operate on all year. That's what he gets. Which I think it's 5%.
That's what I found too.
I think it's maxed out too. I don't think it can go any higher. I'm not sure.
Yeah, this person sent me information that there was other counties that had increased innkeeper's tax and utilized it for event centers and stuff like that. So it was something that somebody asked me if it was a path, and I don't know the answer, so I'll ask the council when we fix a official path to really take into consideration.
Anybody have anything else? Whoops, Kenny?
Kenny's ready to roll.
I'm ready to go. Anybody else have anything? Okay, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Kenny,
Second.
Bill seconds, all those in favor?
All right.
Anybody opposing to that? Okay.